We welcome you back to this second half. Now in San Francisco, as most of you have realized since the beginning of the year, we've tried to consolidate everything here into one big class on Sundays, which everyone's committed to coming. So we have a nice sized 8 or 10 people here in the room and on Sunday. But Saturday mornings we don't live stream from here anymore. We just have the Saturday night worship or satsang, which we had last night, and then today's Mother's Day class. And so we make slow headway in the Upanishads, especially when I get into explicating the different meanings of the slokas, because you can take any few words in Shruti and Yukti or Shravana Manana, explain them and then help you contemplate them. And so that's a very important part of a Vedanta sadhana. I think Vedanta sadhana is kind of a little bit of a contradiction in term. Yoga sadhana is a better way of saying, although in yoga we'd want to do more than just postures and breathing. You'd want to do these other limbs and the yamas and niyamas in practice. But in Vedanta, the practice is almost effortless from the outside. It's really remaking the mind, because you've realized the mind is the source for everything outside. It's that matrix. It's that the great mind, particularly, which is still in form, is producing all this, mass producing it, not just trees and rivers and forests and things like that, which is the external version of it, but the unmanifested prakriti side of things, which is all these inner realms, where you're pulling all this from every day, and going back to every night. Consciousness is going through these apparent movements, and that's what we call creation, preservation, or destruction. Actually, Vedanta likes to say better projection, sustenance, and withdrawal. Because when you say creation and destruction, it sounds like something got produced or something got destroyed, but everything's eternal all the time, so you can't really create something anew, which is what Ecclesiastes meant when he said there's nothing new under the sun. You can't get anything new because it's already there inside of you. So you're producing it and playing with it and then withdrawing it all the time. Your breath is a sign of that. Your in-breath, held breath, out-breath is a sign of that inside of just less than a minute. Your daily life, 24 hours, is a sign of that. So everything is telling you that all the time. Everything is, everything's eternal. So the Vedantist realizes this in the mind and realizes that any blockage to the understanding of that is also in the mind. And therefore goes into the mind and does its practice. And very little of it happens outward. Maybe a few things you have to go prove. I'll go off to pilgrimage to India just to prove that, or I'll go pick up a book. That's a little action at least, you see. But basically Vedanta has this, it's all about doing a practice in your mind. You can do it sitting still, which Buddha did under the bo tree for so many days, and Christ in the wilderness. Just sit still and do it until the thing gets clear. And actually, it's always clear, because there's always a sun shining no matter how many clouds are in front of it. So you also realize this is the truth. So sometimes you just have to wait out the clouds, you see. In California maybe not so much, although I hear over the last few months you've had almost all rain. But any nice place, you just sometimes gets infused with clouds, so you just sit. So meditation is just sit for a while until all those clouds go away and the truth becomes apparent to you again. It's just that people have a habit of restless action, and that's, to them, that is life. You have to be acting. Meaning is in action, but it never is. It's all meaningless. It doesn't amount to anything in the end, and it disappoints you in the end. So you want the fulfillment, then you just stop. That's, again, Mother Kali, she says hum, and everything stops on the battlefield. Everything just melts. She wants everything to go back to its original birthless, deathless, actionless. Then she'll just say the bijam for it, and everything will be still and peaceful forever, like an ocean that's come to rest finally, without any waves. The great mind will do that too. In the meantime, you're caught out here in the waves, like my teacher used to say, if you stay on the surface, you get tossed about. But if you dive deep, there's just peace, that's all. So you have to be an expert diver, or if you do stay on the surface, an expert surfer, to be able to outlive that, turn it to your advantage, energy and so forth, the expert yogi. So again, then, Vedanta is not really a practice, it's a statement of fact, and if you're going to do a practice in order to realize a statement of fact, then you do some yoga. Yoga is really a universal term in all religions. It's not just Indian. I'm glad it's actually beginning to get around in different languages, although we're sorry that it's just turned into a bunch of physical postures, because that's a very small part of it. But the term yoga itself has become to be known for transforming the mind so that it can be more like its Atman. Mind turns back in and assumes its true nature, and then it becomes no mind, or Buddha mind, or transcendental mind, or names they've given it.
Shunyata.
Shunyata, yeah, it becomes empty mind, right. So with these three slokas that we've just repeated, that we've taken before, you could say it's like, oh, Babaji, you did this last time, and so forth. We've heard this again, but doesn't it sound new to you again? Because actually several months have passed and we haven't entertained it, unless you do practice your manana every day and just pick this up and think about it. Again, that's sitting still, isn't it? If you just pick it up and read a sentence and just just concentrate on it. See, and then it begins to offer up its meaning deeper and deeper. If you just read it and put it down like a novel or like a school book or something, then it's not going to offer you very much depth. But the revealed scriptures have mother power in them. She's in every syllable. I mean, that's why we would sing in our tradition. Mono bole bhajakali icha hoy torje achari guru data moha mantra divane shi japa kori mono bole bhajakali. Oh, monobole, mind, again and again repeat the name of Mother Kali. So you get her in mind and you repeat it again and again, and then meditate upon her using any method you want. See, so we just gave us three methods here. You can meditate on the outer guru with the mantra he gave you. You can meditate on the next form of the guru, which is the power guru, the subtle power guru. And you can meditate on the ultimate guru, like we would meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, who's not in the body anymore, not in the physical body anyway. Has a causal body you can go to, open a channel to it, like we were saying, over 20, 30, 40 years of meditation now is, for me, 50 years almost of meditation on Sri Ramakrishna. So this opens a channel if you do it every day, or as much as you can. And now it's a stream of consciousness. You opened it, and you realized other people were opening it at the same time you were. So you got, like a bunch of fish came together in a big river and went upstream, and you realized that you became one of them, and now you're going to the source and so forth. And so this is called Kaivalya Pragbara by one of India's most ancient philosophers, Lord Kapila, the Samkhya system. There's a whole river flowing towards liberation, and then there's a whole river, Samsara Pragbara, flowing towards bondage. Hundreds and thousands of people, like I say, not even thinking of God by accident, not even knowing that there's anything beyond matter, having no faith, a godless culture, living a great little study of life on the surface of things all the time, for every breath, for years at a time, for lifetimes, and being reborn with our ancestors over and over again is samsara, according to Lord Buddha, or Maya, according to the Vedantists. Never having an idea that there might be anything beyond it, you see. And so letting themselves out of the picture of this bliss. It's not just that, oh, you're going to go to hell, because I mean this is basically a kind of hell you're in. But it's that that's not even a half of it. The real problem is that you let yourself out of your own perfection. You dreamed yourself away from your own perfection, and you believed the dream and not the reality. So we don't really like the idea of follow your dreams. We like the idea of awaken from your dreams. That's what he said. From dreams awake, from bonds be free. Know the truth. Thou art he, thou art she. The men are Shiva, the women are Shakti. Realize, awaken and realize your true nature. From dreams awake, from bonds be free. He'd open the door in the morning at 3 or 4, yell that at you. So you get up and meditate with him, you see. Thousand Island Park or some of the retreats he gave when he was here. Like we'll give in a couple weeks and up the Great Channel, Columbia River Gorge. We'll get together up there and study this really deeply. So, from dreams awake, and those are kind of projections that the mind has been hypnotized into doing, and your ego is in cahoots with that. You say, oh, I like this dream life. But then it'll turn to nightmare life too. So then 3 methods are there. You meditate on, in the 3 worlds, you meditate on the 3 teachers, the 3 principles of Guru Tattva. And if you want to meditate on them, if we want to show some kind of chart today, which we should, then we could show this one. And there's 10 conditions that that Lord Vashishta, to be more specific, put forth in worshipping or meditating upon Guru Tattva. Tattva means principle, like Amritattva. You're the very principle of nectar if you're named Amritattva, you see. Or Krishna says in the Gita, Na satya vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sattaha. Ubayor api drishantos to anayor tattva darshibihi. So tattva darshibihi. What he's saying is, the unreal never exists. The real never ceases to be. The truth about both has been realized by the seers. Drishantos, the seer, tattva darshibihi. They've seen darshibihi, the tattvas. So the principles, see, are changing. The seer is the truth. The one who's looking at the principles, using the principles, that's the truth. You are the truth. Those things that you're occupying, body, senses, subtle senses and dream, mind, intellect, ego, those are tattvas. See? And you put them on, or you should be able to put them on and dissolve them, saying, I am none of them. That's the neti-neti process, not this, not this. That's the dissolution of the mind practice that you would engage in. And you do this every day. I mean, this is your Vedantic practice. You just get up one day and you say, I'm not the body, I'm not the senses, I'm not the subtle senses and dream, nor am I the ego, I'm not the intellect. What am I? Who am I is actually what it comes to. So that's the sloka in the Gita where Krishna mentions that. Darshibihi, tattva darshibihi. They've seen the tattvas and how they change. And then they've seen the seer. So the unreal never really exists. It's not permanent. It's always changing. The real never ceases to be. It's permanent. It's unchanging. It's immutable. That's you. So, I mean, that's something I just said in 2 minutes. But if you realize that, then you're free. You can consider yourself free. Because I chanted at the beginning of the class, right? Enlightenment is the constant remembrance of this fact that all is Brahman. So you've just separated the wheat from the chaff. That's the unreal. It never really is. There's the real. That's me. Game over. You see, time well spent. I realized Brahman in 2 minutes. Now there's these difficulties see, that might come up when I challenge myself. You see, life is a challenge. It's a race. You don't want to run it in a dream. See, that was it. Gaudapada used to say that. It's like Maya, running a race in a dream. And you win a trophy, You drink water, and, you pump your lungs, but then you wake up on your bed and it was all a dream. You never had a race. It was all a projection of your own mind, and you just stayed in one place. So there you are again. Come back to that one immovable, static, permanent, unchanging, immutable self, Atman or Brahman. Fuse them together. So if you wanted to clarify yourself, then you would, and I just colorized this chart, you would take Lord Vashishta, who is one of the 10 mind-born sons of the Trinity in very early times. He's known for his great teachings because he was very very close to that source of the Trinity, Lord Brahma. Not Brahman, but Lord Brahma, the great Trinity. So he puts forth this teaching, and I'll go through it quickly. Shruti first, strong desire to hear the truth. They never think about God even by accident. They don't want to go anywhere and hear about it. Maybe even to church, maybe hear something about it, you see. The Almighty Father, although it's not pronounced very much in Christianity, you'll hear something about the Son, but not the Almighty Father. But I must go and put myself in the vicinity of people who are thinking about higher things, and like I said, if you have an intellectual life, like they did in Swamiji's time, then you'll go invite him to the Sesame Club, and you'll go to the Sesame Club and you'll sit and listen to him, and then maybe you'll end up following him to India like Sister Nivedita did, and giving up house and home, and becoming a wandering sannyasin. American female did this, see, and set the stage for others to do it. So, she wasn't American, but Western. Probably English, Irish or something. So you had this, these examples then of the exemplars who were disciples of the Guru, you see. So they had to hear the truth. So some of them caught him by surprise. When I first heard Swamiji speak, he spoke the truth. I knew it was the truth. The next time I heard him, he spoke the truth again, nothing but the truth. And the rest of the life I heard him, he didn't speak anything but truth. That's what she said. See, I think that was Margaret Noble, Tantine. Tantine was her affectionate name. She said, that's what she said about hearing the great Swami. So, Shruti, you must hear it. Second, Yukti, contemplate it. It's not going to do any good just to hear it and walk away from it. You really have to sit with it, like I'm trying to be explaining in this class. It's sort of against people's natures today. Is just to sit down. Okay, I'm not going to move. Or if I sit down and don't move, my thought takes me in all sorts of random places. It's a waking dream you're in. You're not going. It's the same dream you're in day and night, but there's a waking dream version of the waking state where they call it fantasies and things like that. It's not really doing you any good. You really have to shut down the faucets, as I said, and sit in emptiness for a while. I'm not going to think. Maybe I'll just breathe. That's one of the go-to moves of people with restless minds. In both the Hindus and the Buddhists want you just to breathe. Concentrate on your breath. Why? Well, they can't give you the deeper meaning of that yet. Waking, in breath, held breath, out breath, that might occur to you later, but it's because it'll take your mind off of thought. So you just concentrate on your breath. In, held, out. You count, 8 in, 8 held, 8 out, or 16 is an intermediate, or 32 is advanced. You do this practice. It's part of the pranayama, practice of yoga. And in all the time that you're doing that, you're accomplishing two things. You're not thinking, and you're concentrating. Who would have thought the two could be opposite of each other, But a kind of concentration on thought, deeper thought is one thing, but your mind is going through a kind of concentration on surface thought all the time. That's become a habit. So you want to break that kind of concentration, and just like you would break away from the surface of the waves that are tossing you, and go to a deeper level of peaceful concentration. So my favorite metaphor that I've thought of is in the swimming pool, my neighbor's swimming pool when I was growing up. My brother and I used to go back there and plague them. Can we use your swimming pool? So, let all the kids in the neighborhood pretty soon in there. So, we would float on the surface of the pool. When you float, you could even go to the deep end, right? I'm not going to drown, you see. But one day, your older brother teaches you how to tuck and dive. You see, tuck and dive, because you can't break the surface. You've tried, when you're young, if you remember. You can't get below the surface. Your body won't let you, which is good because you know you're not going to drown. But it's not so good because you only have the surface to enjoy. As soon as you get the tuck and dive move, you've got a whole underwater world there. Now you're holding your breath, maybe for a minute and a half at a time. We used to time each other, you see, hyperventilate and then dive. But you couldn't do anything if you just remained on the surface. But the whole underwater world opened up to you. Well, of course, the bottom of the swimming pool isn't that beautiful, but later in Hawaii, you were snorkeling, you see. So my brother were doing that in a swimming pool. Later in Hawaii, we were free diving with masks and staying under for 2 minutes at a time and going through tunnels, you see, and coming out the reefs, Oh, what the stories we had. We had this one tunnel called King Rad, which is a hole in the reef. And against your true nature, you dove into it. You couldn't back out of it because it was too narrow. So you just dove into this reef, and you went circular down for about 30 seconds, trying not to scratch yourself, you see, on the reefs, the coral. You'd hit the bottom, and by that time you were 50 feet under or more. And you'd look, and there's this big opening in the reef up ahead of you in light. And you just start beating a hasty retreat for that air, you see. 2 minutes later, you'd come up, you see. So I remember the first time we did that, and how amazed we were at it, you see. Then we did it the other way, coming up, backwards. And so the whole thing was achieved by tuck and dive. You couldn't leave the surface unless you could do that. So I'm saying it's the same thing in meditation. You can just sit on the surface, and just have very limited enjoyment of your thoughts and your mind. But if you can dive and stay down, which is why, again, you're kind of practicing the breathing exercise for a while. Even out your breath and stay in a peaceful state, because breathing will help you stay peaceful. So it's one of the preliminary practices, breathing, in both of those traditions, and probably in all the Indian traditions. So in that way, it's a kind of concentration. So yukti is a kind of concentration that allows you to stay deep in any given subject. So if you have to go to school or you have to go to work, but then you want to have a spiritual life, you put everything aside, you see, and you just concentrate on that particular sloka, like I'm doing with you for 3 hours today, just taking 2 or 3 slokas, and I'm keeping you at a deep level, you see. And you're letting me do that, you see. And it doesn't take that much effort as long as you're not sleepy, you see, or restless. So you have to, those are 2 obstacles of 4 obstacles in yoga: sleepiness, restlessness. You get over those, tamas and rajas, then you can just sit here and go with me, you see, and entertain all these thoughts that are coming from the Dharma, from the Guru principle. I'm opening my mouth, and Sri Ramakrishna is speaking through me. And so you go with it. Now you have to go home and do that. You see. Be a lamp unto yourself. So when you go home, it's not back to your everyday life. Oh, it's just 9 to 5, or now it's 24/7, I know, but you want to go back there and you want to say, oh, time for manana. You see, I'm going to stop everything. I'm going to sit right down here on my pillow in my living room or at my home shrine, and I'm just going to shut everything out. I'm going to do exactly what I did at class last Sunday. And then that's my practice. You see, it doesn't take a lot of effort. It just takes a little willpower to leave the surface. So if you've become convinced that there are depths, that's not so hard. See? If you don't know that there's anything called depths, then you're not going to have that access or that willpower. You're not going to be inclined towards it. But it becomes a habit, a good habit you replace bad habit with, then you have the kingdoms of heaven open to you. And you're not afraid of death. And you can leave your body consciously, and a whole bunch of other things, you see. will open themselves to you. Knock and it will be open. But if you don't knock, fat chance. Third level, I'm going through these quickly, of the 10 conditions to your relationship with your teacher, is striving to realize the truth. So we've just read the difficulties here. It's difficult to cognize, difficult to abide in, difficult to define, and difficult to cross. That is the ocean of samsara, to get to the Atman and abide in it. Because people can have access to it and fall out of it. You see, that's the thing. Oh, I caught a glimpse. I saw the light. I died in the hospital and came back. Whatever it is, you see. But they never can reach it again. I took a drug and I saw it, you see. But they can't reach it again. It's not the same. Maya changes. The drug clogs up the arteries. You see the passages in which you get to it. So it's not the same the next night. Just like going into dream and deep sleep isn't the same tomorrow night as it was last night. So you're in this changing morass of shifting situations. So you have to have something that's stable and dependable, see, that you can depend upon. And you open that channel and keep it open, then you abide in it. Only Atman abides is one of the great sayings in our tradition, now that Swamiji has brought the Vedanta here to the West. So strive to realize the truth. 4, then you scrutinize that truth. It sounds maybe a little bit like a directive, but it's not. It's a form of bliss. Once you've seen it, then there's really not much else you can do but scrutinize it. It's sort of like seeing the beauty of nature for the first time, metaphorically speaking. You just can't take your eyes off it. Someone was telling me yesterday, well, I can go out in the backyard and sit in my lawn and, everything just seems, even here in the city in San Francisco, but then I take a look at a leaf and a flower and there's ants in it and there's bees lighting on it. And, this one little thing can become this, you can see how much is in it. See? But you've had to sit and concentrate to do that. So you've had to practice some yoga. And then more and more will open up the more you sit. And that's just the external nature you're talking about. Then pretty soon you're looking at the antness of the ant and the bee-ness of the bee and the flowerness of the flower, the lawnness, the grassness of the grass, you see. And you're having deeper meditations until pretty soon hours go by and you come back to your awareness and, oh, you just had a samadhi, you see. Like having a dream last night. Now you want to abide in it, and now you want to scrutinize it. I want to know how this works. See? This is like saying, Ramakrishna is saying, I want to know God through every religious path. I want to know how all those work. Because, why? To help people? I'm not really thinking about that. I just love God. I want to know how it works out here. See? And then I'll know that it's a reflection of the inner, and then Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamadachite. I'll know that the outside is a reflection of the inside, and that both of those connect to formlessness, and that formlessness connects to Brahman. And then I'm fully awake. See? I have yogic insomnia, finally. See? I'll never fall asleep again. And in fact, I prefer to remain awake now. See that? I kind of fear falling into sleep and dream again. I fear the ancestors, you see, falling into that again. I have to be very careful. So you go on with these stations. Next is, I'm saving you the Sanskrit right now, just detachment from the unreal. Tat vadarshibhihi. So now that I saw that the unreal never is, and the real never ceases to be, that's not enough. I have to renounce the unreal. You have to sort of stand there and go, that will not bind me any longer. I refuse to let that bind me anymore. And if it suggests itself to my mind as a residue, I will renounce that too. Because, burnt ropes, Sri Ramakrishna said, still look like a rope, but it can't bind you. So you have these thoughts that you've destroyed, and you don't believe in them anymore, like eternal damnation or something like that, creation theory, that don't make sense to you anymore because you've got the higher truth from the higher souls. But there's still some sort of doubt or some sort of entertainment if the thought comes back to you, see. What if? Or I remember that, see. So that's called a burnt rope, see. It can't bind you anymore, but it's still there. So you've got these things in your mind that you still have to scrutinize, you see, and you have to make a final detachment. Your final renunciation. Imitation of Christ means, I become the Christ. I and my Father are one, like he said. But he also turned and said, be thee perfect, like thy Father in heaven is perfect, because that's what he was doing. He was expressing and manifesting his internal perfection, which we would call Atman. And at the same time being fishers of men. And then the sixth step as we go through these 10 is renunciation of the unreal. Seventh is meditation on Brahman. So you see how, as your teacher guides you, your teacher meaning, remember, Anavi and Shambhavi. You've got the external teacher who should be a noble soul and a knower of Dharma. And you've got the internal teacher, which is the source of all teachers, and which is yourself too. You are your own teacher. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that. Pretty soon the mind will become its own guru, but not yet. See, follow the way of the seers, the Upanishads say, until you realize what the seers have realized. Don't go away from them until you're fully convinced that you're realized. Because you can pretend, or you can fall back. See, so you have to be that specific and that in possession of the certitude of what you know. It's a beautiful song Ram Prasad sings. It says, I know, and I know that I know. Freedom from not knowing has been granted by you, Mother. So he came to know the Shakti, the goddess, and she freed him from the fear of not knowing. And so nobody can tell him that he doesn't know anymore. You see. But prior to that, the Upanishad said, those who say they know, they don't know. And those who say they don't know, they probably know. You see. So there's a stage in there you have to be very careful of the ego getting in there and grabbing the spiritual knowledge too. Because the spiritual ego is a very difficult thing to get rid of, they say. You have to be that humble, that surrendered. Like somebody just told me at the break, the word Islam means surrender, in a sense. So you have to make sure that the ego is curtailed. So this is part of this, Mitya Chagi, renunciation of the unreal, so that you can get to Brahma Shuddhi. That is meditation on Brahman as the eternally pure principle. There's Ramakrishna used to say, Brahman is the only thing that hasn't been defiled by the tongue of man. So you can always rely upon that, but you have to open this channel to it. And Vashishtha is giving you he's giving Ram, actually, the young teenage Ram, this 10-platformed process of understanding your guru, at the Anavi level, at the Shakta level, and at the Shambhavi level. Shambhavi level is coming. It's very, very deep. And that's going to cover the 3 worlds and your 3 states of consciousness and the three mantras of Om, and the 3 stages of your breath. All these things are contained in these great triputis. So these methods, again, very Vedantic methods are given. You could look at these and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not doing anything. See, I'm not acting. Yeah, that's the point, see. I mean, when I went to try and hear the truth, you see, I just sat and listened. I didn't move. And then when I wanted to contemplate it, I didn't get up, go somewhere. I sat and contemplated it. And then when I strove to realize the truth, I did it inside me, and on, there was no outer thing you did. And out there, it's all outer, and that's all that exists. There's only the external. In science, only evolution, no involution. And science is supposed to be fair. If there's an evolution, there has to be an evolution, there has to be an involution. Until such a place in your mind where you realize that Brahman is immovable and that there's no evolution or involution. There's just you sitting in the truth, see. and when your ego comes forward to you and says, "Do you want to play? I have a lot of dreams ready." You say, "Not this time, buddy." My teacher used to say, finally say, the ego is like an unwanted guest who comes to a party. He says, you ask it when it's going to leave, and it says, "I'll think about it." So it's always there in your face, you see. It's always asking you to play. And if you have a ripe ego, that play is called helping people. I mean, I've had people tell me, says, well, I don't really have to go to a teacher, and I don't need a scripture from old times. And there's a lot of things I don't need. I can just sit here and kind of be myself, you see. But then problems come in their life and everything. But even if that doesn't happen, there's one thing they're missing, is helping others. It's called karma yoga. And this is how you express yourself in this world. Otherwise, give up the body, go away, Devil take the hindmost. See? I don't care for any of you. I'm gone and gone forever. Well, that's what Buddha said. I'm gone and gone forever. Have no hope for me to come back. And I suppose Christ, maybe 2,000 years, has he shown himself up yet? I think he probably has. But if I gave you my opinion, it would offend, several billion people to hear it. But let's just say he was like Buddha and said, "No, I'm not coming back. You didn't treat me very well in the first place. And in the second place, I never really came and went anyway. I'm the eternal Father. I'm the light. How can the light come and go? It can get covered and uncovered, but it can't come and go." So this is all really part of this Shruti Yukti Namabhava. You can, when I teach a class nowadays, in the later years of my sharing the Dharma with you, I'm just analyzing things in front of you. I don't plan any of this. The planning all went into the charts, and my study of the scriptures is pretty much over. And now I'm just dissecting it in front of you. I'm showing you what I think all the time, you see, about any given facet of the Dharma. And I'm just doing it spontaneously. And whatever comes up, I feel comes from Mother, and she pushes it forward, like Sri Ramakrishna said. And we can look at these teachings together this way. You get to see somebody doing it, on the external level. You're seeing my mind at work, when you take apart a sloka and present a series of teachings and everything. And the basic teachings all came from other sources, like Lord Vashishta. But this is all something that has to be done by you inside of yourself. And there are other ways you can do it. You can follow the path of devotion, and follow the path of strict meditation. This is the path of Jnanam. It's the best path according to the father of devotion, Sri Krishna. Nahi jnanena sadrishyam pavitam iha vidyate, he says in the Gita. He says, the best purifier of all is knowledge. It destroys ignorance. So if you want the quickest way, according to Swamiji, to get to Brahman, it's the path of knowledge. Because your ignorance is what's in the way. And your ignorance is unreal. You see. It never was real. Only Brahman is real. And so you heard those statements when you first heard the Shruti, but it didn't occur to you. It sounded blasphemous, you see, if you were raised as a Christian. Or it sounded impossible if you were a seeker. And I remember when Lexington first told me that we can live in our Atman every day. It's right here. We've realized it. It's happening right now. You say, "Oh, I don't know, that's too simplistic," you see. I had to go somewhere and think about that. But that's the advantage of the path of knowledge. You can do it all inside of you because the truth is in you. Ignorance has clouded it. You take the knowledge and you get rid of it. I mean, Sri Ramakrishna used to use that as one of his favorite stories. If I got a thorn in my flesh, and that thorn is called ignorance, I take another thorn from the same bush, peel the first thorn out. What do I do with them? You toss them. So knowledge and truth, see. Knowledge is also not ultimate, but it gets rid of the ignorance, and then the truth reveals itself. You don't need all knowledge and ignorance. It's a duality. You could fall back into, thinking that knowledge was the ultimate thing. And therefore, as long as knowledge is in the mind, what else is in the mind? Ignorance. As long as good is in the mind, what else is in the mind? Bad. As long as virtue is in the mind, what else is in the mind? Vice. You're in the duality sweep again. And you could stay in the upper crust of that duality, but that's the gateway to heaven that you're not passing through. You keep getting knocked back into good and bad, virtue and vice. I'm better than you are. My religion's better than yours. My culture's better than yours. I'm going to go to war with you to prove it. I'm a pope. I'm going to put on armor, and I'm going to go and kill the infidels in another country. That's what you'll fall back into. You see, it's ridiculous. It's child's play. It's immaturity in the name of religion. And if you're not into that, then you can always pray, but keep the powder keg dry. See, praying to some God that you think is on your side, but you keep the powder keg dry just in case they won't accept your God, so you can go blow them up. You see, convince them with muscle. Powder means gunpowder. So you're keeping your store of ammo ready, to convince them. It's all hypocrisy, and it's far, far from true religion. Even further from universality. The truth that Ramakrishna proved of the essence of all religions. So these are some of the things that you'll meditate on when you see Brahman, after you've gone through these earlier 6 steps. The 8th step is acquiring that non-dual wisdom as your own, and being able to draw from it, you see. In other words, in your dream state, your deep sleep state, and in your actions of everyday life, you don't drift back to mithya, to falsity. You don't even really need to go and read the scriptures anymore. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the scriptures to a realized soul are like a tank of water when there's a flood everywhere. See, what good is a tank of water when everything is flooded? You see. So you've got all the knowledge within you, and the scriptures led you there. Thank you for them. You see, Shruti Yukti Anubhava, thanks to the seers who kept them on the earth plane for me to come along, even if I had to trip over them. You see, put them in my own way, like an alarm clock to wake me up one lifetime. But actually, once I've reached this 8th step, and 7th and 8th step, I'm kind of beyond that. You see. I've gotten over it, and it's mine again. I only dreamed I lost it. See? And that's the business of the ego, is to lose and gain. See? Loss and gain suck. See. Eternal possession is what you have with Brahman, so that really says it all. The 9th and penultimate step is destroying all further mental impressions. You can see how samskaras play a big role in yoga psychology, and unfortunately they don't play much of a role in Western psychology yet. But yoga psychology holds the many lifetimes view where conditionings from things that you've done in a previous lifetime have caused impressions in your mind, not your brain. They'll come to your brain later. And so that mind produces bodies, and when it does, the bodies come with the brains in them that have these impressions in them. And that's the only way to justly explain why people are the way they are. Because you don't want to make God into someone who's prefers some people and doesn't prefer others. You see, that's not a just God. In fact, Swamiji said, I would never worship a God like that. Sorry, X that one right out of my list, you see. Has to be, samadarshitvam, has to be even in all beings. It'll be less realized in some and more in others, but it is even and equal in every case, from ant to avatar, same Atman in everything. That's my ideal. Swamiji says. It's the sameness of this Atman in everything. And the mechanism is going to limit it. Insect, animal, plant, so forth. But human being, or intellectual being, or sage, that's where it gets fully realized. And it's obvious that it's in the avatars. But Holy Mother would look at the ant, you see, well, I can't even kill that. You see, look real closely, I see Sri Ramakrishna's face on it. So she couldn't even touch an ant, you see. That's how much she saw Brahman in everything. Well, I'm trying with words to describe some steps of this guru-shishya relationship that are beyond words. But you can see there, acquiring non-dual wisdom, Brahma Gyan. That's a kind of specialized wisdom that's incomparable. Like it says here, supramundane. You know, it's beyond the mundane. You can't even bring it. It won't come into the same quarry. It won't come into the same atmosphere. You'll have to raise yourself to it. Swamiji says, you never pull God down to earth, Brahman to earth. It's not going to happen. But you raise yourself up to Brahman. So people are always compromising Brahman by putting it into an object, or an infant, or a bank account, or a car, or whatever it is they like. And that becomes their God for them, you see. But it wasn't ever Brahman that came into form. It's not a form. It's formlessness with a capital F, and you're going to have to go create this channel back into yourself to rediscover it. And you're not even discovering anything new. You just put things in your own way every birth until it became so exacerbated that you tripped trying to turn around and go back. So what did you do? Found someone who knows the way. And you did what they said. And then you arrived back, hopefully in one lifetime, to this truth that you possess now. But is it enough just to possess it? He doesn't think so. There's still some samskaras from past lifetimes you're not considering yet. And they will show themselves to you in the form of suffering, misery, pleasure, happiness, old habits, you see. In the midst of your bliss, it'll get spoiled by the ego again. So your bliss is not unalloyed, and it's not uninterrupted. The two best uns, you see. Unalloyed and uninterrupted. That's what we're all seeking for. We don't want spoilage. We don't want usurpers. We don't want vikshepas, antarayas. Nothing should spoil our bliss. It should be perfect all the time. That's what we're all looking for. And we can't find it in anything finite. You cannot get to the infinite through the finite. You have to renounce the finite. As long as you're holding on to anything in the finite, thinking it's going to get you there, it's not going to work. It's going to pull you back. And there have been people who have gone very high in realization and gotten pulled back, or gotten very high in realization and not quite reached the goal. See? Well, I think I'll just become attached to a form like Krishna. See? But I never knew the formless Brahman that he spoke about, that he called his own essence, you see. And now I'm waiting for 2,000 years, you know, for that crutch, you see. When I should have followed the truth back then, 2,000 years ago, like imitation of Christ, and become that which I am in one lifetime. So here you are again. 2,000 years have gone like that, but here you are again. See, it's always there, ready to be realized in you, and it's up to you to make that final move on it. Well, that move is here, 10 steps to it. We just said there were some difficulties. It's the sloka too. See, difficult to cross, and then difficult to abide in. This sloka is saying the same thing as Vashishta was so many thousand years ago. And so as we reach into our one class here in San Francisco, which I hope will last you until the summer retreat, because there won't be any class here next summer in July, because we go straight to the retreat at Forest Hill along the American River, another beautiful channel. Let's all hopefully meet there and speak about the subjects there. But the final step then, after destroying these subtle mental impressions, which I could have pulled out these samskara charts that I've made to show you how subtle impressions are the hidden causes for a lot of our obstacles, is this 10th samadhi, sthiti samadhi. Different kinds of samadhis. When we say sthiti means steady, like that unalloyed, uninterrupted. You get it and it stays. So if you're saying like I can't remember what ignorance is like. There's a song in India. I woke up one day and I said, it's gone, utterly gone. My ignorance is gone. You can't even remember what it was like. Sort of like, can you remember what it's like to be a child right now? Kind of difficult, you see. Certain little memories. But the truth is even much more powerful than that. See, when you awaken to it, it's like ignorance doesn't exist anymore. And then you realize what they say, all this is Brahman. The house is Brahman, the table's Brahman, the carpet's Brahman, the tree's Brahman. Because they're seeing the carpetness of the carpet, the houseness of the house. They're seeing the essence in everything because they've cleared away all obstacles. It was that beautiful saying of Christ, you go to try and remove a mote of dust from the eyes of others when you haven't even removed the beam, a piece of wood from your own eye. So it's that kind of thing. It's become so clear. But you had to remove the beam from your own eye before you try and remove the mote of dust from someone else, from their vision. So at that point then, you have teachers who never had a beam in their eye or a mote of dust. You see, these are the Shambhavi teachers, the eternal principles, the Guru Tattva. These are the Shakta Gurus. And the Navi Guru out here is your conditional teacher. Thank God you've got one in the form, because a form is fraught with imperfections. Everyone's form is. And everyone who has a mind has to be careful. You see, if you have a human mind, that's got everything in it. I mean, you talk about purifying the mind, you're really talking about purifying it of those sandbags, that were in it, so that you could lift off. And so it's not like you could get rid of the whole balloon and the basket and everything in it, or the hot air generator that took you up. You see, there's some things you're going to have to keep. So in your mind, you have to get rid of those things that weigh you down, and then let the soaring happen, and you'll naturally get beyond the mind mechanism, and beyond its intellect, and beyond its thoughts, chitta, and find it beyond its ego. Ego will ripen, and you can see around it or through it. The unripe ego is like blowing up a balloon in this room. You can't get in, or out, for that matter. But there's nothing in the room, you see, but space. So deflate that. See. It's still there as a mechanism for teachers to teach you the Dharma, and so they have this imperfection in them. But to them, it's not binding. See. They can see around it. They can see through it. They can work with it. See. And it shows you how to do the same. So sthiti samadhi is a kind of steady state of consciousness that I saw in Swami Shishanandaji Maharaj. He never changed. It was all simple to him. You couldn't take him to a restaurant or something. See. You could probably get him in there, but he'd look at the menu and say, bring me a bowl of rice. See. I mean, the same thing every night. It wasn't like a feast of the palate for him. You see, he'd renounced the tongue, taste buds and all. It's part of the body, and he renounced that a long time ago. You see, so it was all simplified, and that's what it is for the monks. But remember the hump on your back as a householder. Maybe keep that from growing. You see, don't develop one. If you take up a burden, be able to set it down. And this is how you set it down. You see, if you've been informed. by the Anavi Guru and gotten the mantra. This is how you set it down. And I had another chart to show you about that, which is the Four Sentinels. I'll show you that next week next time we meet, which actually won't be till October for this particular Upanishad. But you can read ahead and send me questions. Remember, I'm good at email questions, so just waiting to hear from any of you. Well, Babaji, I sat down and did some manana for 20 minutes on something that I heard in the Upanishad. Here's my thinking. See, is this correct? Or can you clarify? See, I get questions like that from people, mostly younger people. So that's doesn't take long to do nowadays, and second best to coming actually to class or satsang. Maybe third best if you consider coming to a retreat, like some of you are going to do in May. But nonetheless, there are ways of working this Dharma into your life. Because, as I've said before, your teacher, your Anavi Guru here, and the founder, Lex Hickson, we were both convinced that Dharma was the solution for every problem. And there was no other solution than that. None in this world. Guru, Dharma, Sangha. Triple gem, it's called. In both Buddhism, Ayu, Punya, Jnana. In both Buddhism and in Vedanta. That's how big it is. Guru, teacher, Dharma, the teachings, and Sangha, the group that comes together. Every religion, you'll see that. Muhammad had his close-in followers. Jesus had his apostles. Buddha has his noble eight. Shankara had his 18 or 20 householders and monastic disciples. It comes down to a Sangha, a group of people who are serious about getting free, or have a suspicion that bondage is not real, that I don't need to be impeded by bondage. The unreal never is, the real never ceases to be. The truth about both has been realized by the seers. So here, let's end with a chant. Om Sato Ma Sadgamoya Tamaso Ma Joitir Gamoya Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamoya Abira Mayedi Rudrayati Dakshinamukam Tenamam Pahinicham Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from lower truth to higher truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real. And lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother of the universe, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om